Yeah, like a lockbox or something.
With a couple of handguns, and he tells them like it's $300 US for each of them. And then Eric is just like, I don't got 300.
This is like post-apocalyptic. Like, the guy's asking a lot for $300 American dollars. Like, that's a lot of money in this type of world and situation.
Yeah, for a handgun. And he's like, well, I don't got 300. And he's like, well, it's 300 or you can fuck off. And by this time, Eric has already loaded it and he just shoots.
Yeah. And like a pretty shocking move too. I remember when I was in the theater and saw that, I was like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah, you can't see it coming. Just point blank range in the head, and then you can see.
Well, that guy made a big mistake, which is don't give up the ammo with the gun that you're trying to sell. You give the ammo later.
But once he takes that guy out, you can see like he's like, "Oh shit." Like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. And then he goes back to talk to the old lady again.
And pulls a weapon on her. And he's like, have you seen the men or the car that I'm looking for? And she just kind of goes round and round with him. But it's
still asking his name, which he just never gives up.
And she's like, what is it about this car that you love so much? Can you tell me? Like, what's the reason? And you see Eric struggling and trying to like not cry, but he's clearly like wants to break down, because I feel like for whatever reason she figured him out right there, and they're kind of foreshadowing the end of the film once you know where the story is going. But yeah, it's a great, like a super underplayed kind of scene. Great performances right there.
Excuse me. And another part where you just kind of see that Guy Pearce's character just nothing left to lose. You know, he clearly just killed a guy in cold blood. You know, and is looking to kill the old woman. You know, by the way he's sticking the gun in her face, demanding to know, like, have you seen the car?
Because I feel like once she lays out like what the kind of despicable behavior that's obviously going on there, that he's like, fuck these people. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. And so he wants to kill her, but I don't know if it's because she's a woman or what have you, but he doesn't, which ends up playing against him later. I feel like.
And then that's where I think outside of that place is where Ray finds him and sees the truck and, you know, is asking, oh, hey, you know, this is my brother's truck. Like, where's my brother? So he's obviously injured, and Eric sees this. He goes back in to talk to the guys running the little store, asking them where the doctor is, and now the guy's sticking a shotgun in his face and threatening him and telling him that he needs to, you know, buy some food.
He's like, you pick yourself something off the shelf. I'm not playing with you.
That whole place, those guys reek of like non-professional actors, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, clearly, like, those are the fact that they're non-actors, like, gives those guys real character.
Yeah, it's like credibility.
Yeah,
for sure.
So they tell him, you know, there's a doctor up in the hills, you can take him to her, and that's where he goes. And, you know, she confronts him outside and tells him to put the gun down. And I think it's kind of established that she's a vet. I believe. I could be wrong on that, but that's while she's patching up Ray. Eric kind of wanders around and finds a bunch of dogs in the back room in the cage that the lady says that she has to keep in there, or else, you know, scavengers will come by and take the dogs for food. So, and you can see that he's very affected by seeing all the dogs. You know, he's almost emotional.
She tells him basically, like, all of these people have dropped their dogs off at different times and they never they never came back for whatever reason. So I have to just look after them.
And we should establish that this Australia is almost like the Old West now, where people are just kind of coming from all over, trying to, I think, work the mines.
Yeah.
I think there's mention of the mines. Ray talks about the mines a little bit later on.
Which is why I feel like there's a kind of melting pot of cultures.
Yeah.
You know, you don't just have Australian people.
Yeah, and Scoot McNairy and Pattinson are
Southern,
supposed to be from Texas, I believe. Well, I don't know if that's established, but I think Scoot McNairy himself is from Texas, and Pattinson's got a southern accent as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're obviously Americans, but Ray gets patched up. Eric kind of is sitting there, obviously wants to go, wants to leave because he wants to find the brother still. And then there's an alarm because there's some cars rolling up. And then right away, like, Eric knows some shit's about to go down, and he asks, can you go get the rifle? And she's kind of wondering, what's going on, like, who are these people? But Eric knows. They're not here for good things, and you see out in the distance, you see immediately, like, the doctor's assistant or helper, whomever was there with her, go out to confront the people in the vans and get shot.
Immediately. And by this time, Eric has already lined them, like, in his crosshairs with the rifle.
It's a pretty good shot, too. They were
pretty
80
far.
yards, maybe 100 yards, and he hits them all center mass with one shot. One shot per guy. He takes out 3 of them. And,
of course, the veterinarian lady is super upset because her assistant had just been gunned down, and technically Eric has brought in this trouble to her doorstep, and she tries to go after him, and he obviously overpowers her and forces Ray to leave, and is from the very start kind of, because of who Ray is related to, he treats Ray like just trash. And you can see Ray is very kind of affected by, like, doesn't know how to digest what's going on around him, because he's finally feeling better, but he doesn't know why there's all this hostility or why all of this is happening, right? And so they end up, do they go to the motel?
Yeah.
After that?
They're at the motel, and that's where a really good scene between the two of them happens, where you can kind of see Ray doesn't really get it, and then Eric lays it out for him that your brother left you to die. Ray keeps talking about, my brother and all that, and Eric has to say, no, he left you to die. He talks about God, and he says God doesn't give a shit whether you live or die.
He's like, your brother's not here. The only thing that matters is that I'm here.
Yeah. I'm the one that's keeping you alive. I'm the reason. If not for me, you would be dead. Your brother's not a good guy. It's me who's the one that's helping you. We are helping each other now, but he abandoned you. And then you can see that really kind of pisses him off, because Ray gets up and storms off. And then there's the confrontation with the army. He sees the army roll by, ducks behind the bed, hears knocks on the door, and is really scared and fires through the door, and then goes to check, and unfortunately he shot the little girl of the proprietor of the motel.
My question for you was, did the army notice? Obviously they noticed him at the window. Did they have that little girl go up as a distraction to get him to lure him outside?
I don't know. I think the army was probably drawn in by the shot, though. Heard the gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, something is up there.
Because they cut to a scene where one of the soldiers looks over and sees Pattinson
he's
duck
in the window.
So then, the way that scene plays out, if I didn't know better, I would say that they had saw the little girl, asked her to go knock on it for whatever reason, to get him to come outside. Mm-hmm. Because once he shoots through the door and kills the little girl, goes over and sees what he's done, the military immediately opens fire.
Yeah. And then it's funny because there's already been a shot, and then there's some more shots happening, and it cuts back to Eric, and he's just like sitting there. And
delayed
reaction. The gunfire just hasn't affected him. He hasn't been bothered by it at all. And then when it kind of seems like it's persistent, then he gets up and goes, and then sees what's going on, and just walks right up on the soldier and shoots him in the back of the head.
Because he's on the other side, so the military's not paying attention. It's crazy. And then he yells at Ray, like, stop shooting!
Drags him out, and then when they take off, and then he's talking to him later on and says, I can't, Ray is talking later on, says, I can't stop thinking about that little girl, and that's when Eric tells him, you shouldn't stop thinking about it. That's the price you pay for taking somebody's life, is you have to always think about what you did.
Because before that, in their conversation, Eric tells Ray, like, if you don't learn how to fight, you're not going to last very long. So then when Ray loads his weapon, and he ends up killing that little girl, he's like, all I wanted to do was fight or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's like Eric's words were kind of bothering him and drew him to take drastic measures. And it just shows you, like, his imbalance of reality, mm-hmm. I guess, like how...
So it's that scene at the fire where you can tell that... I mean, you can tell this from the very beginning of the film, but Eric's obviously got some sort of trauma. He's haunted by something. And that's when he tells you a lot about his character by telling Ray that you always have to think about the person that you killed. That's the price that you pay. And Ray is talking about the mines and kind of just like some random anecdote that kind of goes nowhere, and Eric's annoyed by that, and then Ray just says, "Oh, not every story has to like go somewhere." So they go to sleep, and then Ray gets up, wanders off in the early morning. Looks like he's going to try to take a shit. And then the army rolls up on Eric, who's asleep, wakes him up, and then takes him into custody. So the army scoops up Eric and rides off, and Ray sees him leave.
So does that mean that they knew that they had attacked?
Yeah, I think that's what they were after. Is they knew that there was the firefight at the motel, and mm-hmm. Obviously there's a dead soldier, so they're after the guy that did it, and that's why they pick him up. That's my reading on everything.
So Eric is detained while they don't know that he was with Ray. Mm-hmm. So if Ray wanted to, he could have just went on about his day, and tried to find his brother, and then left Eric to either be executed or transferred to wherever. But he doesn't. He goes after to basically rescue Eric from these military dudes. Meanwhile, Eric is kind of given up and thinks that he's at the end of his ropes, and he kind of starts to tell this soldier, as he's writing up the case or whatever he's doing, what's led him to this point, mm-hmm. essentially, right? Where he starts telling him, like, that he basically killed his wife.
Mm-hmm. She was having an affair.
And the guy that she was with, he killed them in cold blood because he found them